with me if you want to live.
Who sent you?
You did.
Can it be destroyed?
Unknown.
Terminator 2, Judgement Day. Is this the best sequel ever made, or the worst? Well, let's get one thing straight. Terminator 2, Judgement Day is either the pinnacle of sequel perfection, or a bloated, overrated mess that set the bar far too low for the many imitators that followed. Depending on who you ask, it's either a cinematic masterpiece that redefined the action genre, or the movie that began Hollywood's love affair with excessive CGI and catchphrase-laden scripts. So which is it? Is Terminator 2 the best sequel ever made? Or is it the worst? Let's dive in, taking the time to mercilessly dissect both sides of the argument. After all, in a film about time travel, what's one more paradox? James Cameron returned to direct Terminator 2, proving once again that when it comes to making sequels, you might as well hand him a blank cheque and watch him turn cinematic gold into a solid gold blockbuster. With a budget that ballooned to a staggering $100 million, Cameron didn't just push the envelope, he tore it to shreds, set it on fire and filmed the whole thing in glorious slow motion, with a T-800 doing the honours. What did all that money buy? Only some of the most groundbreaking special effects of all time. The T-1000's liquid metal morphing was nothing short of revolutionary, and the practical effects were equally jaw-dropping. Every penny was spent with a kind of reckless abandon that made audiences feel they were watching something truly epic. Cameron's ability to blend cutting-edge technology with practical effects created a film that's visually stunning and narratively compelling, making Terminator 2 a sequel that outshines its predecessor in every conceivable way. Or, let's be honest, Terminator 2 is just proof that even James Cameron can't resist the allure of Hollywood excess. Sure, the budget was astronomical, but was it necessary? The original Terminator was a tight, gritty thriller made on a shoestring budget, and it was all the better for it. In Terminator 2, Cameron seems more interested in showing off his shiny new toys than in telling a coherent story. The result, a bloated, self-indulgent spectacle that's more about style than substance. The T-1000 CGI was impressive for its time, but it's hard not to feel that the film's over-reliance on special effects is just a distraction from the fact that the narrative lacks the tension and raw energy of the first film. Cameron's obsession with pushing the technological envelope comes at the expense of the film's pacing and character development, making T2 a prime example of what happens when a director is given too much money and too little oversight. But what does this all sound like? Brad Fiedel's score for Terminator 2 is nothing short of iconic, taking the eerie industrial sounds of the original and cranking them up to 11. The metallic percussion and haunting synths perfectly underscore the relentless pace of the film, making every scene feel like a ticking time bomb. Fiedel's music doesn't just accompany the action, it propels it, adding an extra layer of intensity to a film that's already firing on all cylinders. Let's not forget the sound design. Every clank, whir and crash is meticulously crafted to immerse the audience. In a world where machines rule and humanity is on the brink of extinction, the T-1000's liquid metal morphing is a prime example of sound design at its best, with every transformation accompanied by spine-chilling sound that makes the impossible feel terrifyingly real. In Terminator 2, sound isn't just an overthought, it's a key player in the film's success. Or you could say that Brad Fiedel's score is just as overblown as the rest of the film, trying way too hard to remind you that everything happening on screen is epic. The original Terminator had a minimalist, almost haunting score that complemented the film's bleak tone. In Terminator 2, Fiedel trades subtlety for bombast, blaring synths and pounding drums that do more to overwhelm the senses than to enhance the narrative. It's as if the film is constantly screaming at you to be impressed, rather than letting the action speak for itself. Don't even get me started on the sound design. Sure, the T-1000's morphing effects were cool the first time, but by the 15th, they're just repetitive. The relentless clanging and metal screeching becomes grating after a while, turning what could have been tense, edge-of-your-seat moments into overblown set pieces that are more exhausting than exhilarating. The plot of Terminator 2 is a masterclass in escalating tension and high-stakes storytelling. The film picks up years after the events of the original, with Sarah Connor institutionalised for her warnings about the impending apocalypse and her son John living as a rebellious teen. But the calm before the storm is quickly shattered when two Terminators are sent back in time. One, a new and nearly indestructible T-1000, and the other, a reprogrammed T-800 with orders to protect John at all costs. The stakes are higher, the action more intense, and the emotional core, Sarah's desperate attempt to protect her son and prevent Judgment Day, hits harder than a steel-toed boot to the face. The brilliance of the plot lies in its ability to balance relentless action with genuine emotional depth. Every encounter with the T-1000 ratchets up the tension, while the evolving relationship between John and the T-800 is a layer of complexity that elevates the film beyond a mere action spectacle. Pacing is impeccable, with each sign driving the narrative forward, leading to a climactic showdown at a steel mill where the future of humanity hangs in the balance. It's a plot that twists and turns with the precision of a well-oiled machine, delivering one unforgettable moment after another. Or, if we're being honest, the plot of Terminator 2 is a convoluted mess that's more interested in setting up flashy action sequences than in telling a coherent story. The time travel logic is a disaster, riddled with inconsistencies that make you wonder if the writers even cared about making sense. Skynet, this supposedly all-powerful AI, sends another Terminator back in time to kill John Connor, but this time it's a liquid metal version because reasons? And let's not even get started on the character development, or lack thereof. John Connor, the future leader of humanity, is portrayed as a whiny, petulant teenager. His biggest contribution to the story is teaching a robot how to be cool. The film tries to make us care about his relationship with the T-800. It's hard to take it seriously when their bonding moments are interrupted by cheesy one-liners and unnecessary humour. Meanwhile, Sarah Connor has gone from a relatable protagonist to a borderline psychotic survivalist, whose sole purpose in the film was to scream about the impending apocalypse. The film's attempts to balance action with emotional result in a disjointed narrative that never quite finds its footing, making it more exhausting than engaging. Arnold Schwarzenegger's return as the T-800 is nothing short of legendary. He takes a role that was already iconic and turns it into something even more memorable, adding layers of complexity to a character that could have easily been one-dimensional. His transformation from ruthless assassin to protective guardian is handled with surprising nuance, making the T-800 a figure of both fear and empathy. Linda Hamilton's Sarah Connor is equally impressive, delivering a performance that's as intense as it is vulnerable. Her portrayal of a woman who's been pushed to the brink by the knowledge of an impending apocalypse is nothing short of masterful. And let's not forget Robert Patrick as the T-1000, a villain so chillingly calm and efficient that he redefined what it means to be a cinematic antagonist. The cast of Terminator 2 doesn't just deliver performances, they create iconic characters that have become ingrained in pop culture. Or maybe it's just a case of actors going through the motions in a film that's more interested in its special effects than its characters. Schwarzenegger's T-800 may be iconic, but let's be real, he's a robot with limited emotional range, so how much nuance are we really talking about here? The film tries to make him a sympathetic figure, but it's hard to take seriously when he's spouting one-liners like... Then there's Linda Hamilton's Sarah Connor, who goes from traumatised waitress to borderline psychotic survivalist in the span of one movie. Sure, she's intense, but at times it feels like she's dialed up to 11 just for the sake of it, making her more of a caricature than a character. Robert Patrick's T-1000 is cold and efficient, but that's about all there is to him. He's more special effects than character, and it shows. The cast of Terminator 2 may have their moments, but for the most part, just going through the motions in a film that's more concerned with blowing things up and with developing its characters. The legacy of Terminator 2 is undeniable. It didn't just set the standard for action films, it redefined the genre. The film's use of CGI was revolutionary, paving the way for the digital effects that would come to dominate Hollywood in the decades that followed. But Terminator 2 didn't just influence the technical side of filmmaking, it also set a new benchmark for sequels, proving that they could be more than just cash grabs, can actually expand on and improve the original material. The film's impact can be seen in everything from The Matrix to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, both of which owe a debt to Terminator 2's blend of action, special effects and philosophical themes. In short, Terminator 2 isn't just a great sequel, it's a film that changed the face of cinema forever. Or maybe Terminator 2 is responsible for some of the worst trends in modern filmmaking. Sure, its use of CGI was groundbreaking at the time, but it also opened the floodgates for the endless stream of effects-driven blockbusters that prioritise spectacle over substance. The film's success led to the belief that bigger is always better, resulting in a slew of bloated, soulless sequels that have little to offer behind their flashy visuals. And let's not forget the Terminator franchise itself, which has been in a steady decline ever since. Terminator 2 may have been the high point, but it also set a precedent that no subsequent film could ever hope to match, dooming the series to a slow, painful death by diminishing returns. The legacy of Terminator 2 is less about its influence on cinema, and more about the damage it did to the action genre, turning what could have been a thoughtful exploration of fate and technology into just another blockbuster formula. So is Terminator 2 Judgement Day the best sequel ever made, or the worst? The truth, as always, is likely somewhere in between, or perhaps it's both at once. On one hand, it's impossible to deny the film's technical achievements, its impact on the action genre, and its enduring popularity among fans and critics alike. It pushed the boundaries of what was possible in cinema, blending groundbreaking special effects with a story that resonated with audiences on a deep emotional level. For those reasons, it can be seen as the best sequel ever made, a film that not only matched its predecessor, but in many ways surpassed it. On the other hand, Terminator 2 is also a bloated, overhyped spectacle that set the stage for Hollywood's obsession with CGI and blockbuster excess. It's a film that prioritises style over substance, spectacle over story, and bombast over nuance. Its legacy is a double-edged sword, contributing to the decline of the Terminator franchise and the rise of an era of filmmaking where bigger is always seen as better. For these reasons, one could argue that Terminator 2 is also the worst sequel ever made, a film that, for all its technical brilliance, represents the very worst tendencies of modern Hollywood. Ultimately, Terminator 2 is a film of contradictions, simultaneously brilliant and flawed, innovative and indulgent. Whether you see it as a masterpiece or a mess, one thing's for sure. It's a film that has left a lasting impact on cinema, for better or worse. So if you haven't seen it yet, maybe it's time to give it a watch and decide for yourself. And while you're at it, why not hit that subscribe button, like or even dislike? Because just like the Terminator franchise, we're not going anywhere, no matter how messy things get. Whether you're here to celebrate its brilliance or criticise its excesses, there's always something to talk about when it comes to Terminator 2 Judgment Day.